Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our mini-series.
Welcome.
Back in your ear holes today, and we thought we would do a little mini-series on terminology because I feel like we throw a lot of words around and we might have some listeners that don't actually know what we're talking about.
There's also still, even if you are watching an F1 race, you hear a lot of terminology and you might be into the F1 and actually still not understand what some of these words are saying because they just throw it out there and you're like, yes, I know what apex is.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick us off. I'm going to kick us off with something that I know a lot of my friends ask me, why did you call your podcast Paddock 43? So we're going to start off with paddock. What is the paddock? What is the paddock? So the paddock, I assume a lot of our listeners already know, but the paddock is basically an area behind the pits and it's kind of like a home for the teams. So all the teams, you know, they have their little hospitality areas, their transporters, everything is in the paddock, and the paddock access is obviously very restricted because, you know, drivers are typically around there. If you want to pay a lot of money, you can go in the paddock or get invited. So yeah, that's basically the paddock in a nutshell.
Pay $10,000 to go in.
Yes.
It ain't cheap.
It ain't cheap,
There once was a time where it used to be free.
Crazy.
They were trying to give away tickets and they couldn't even give them away then.
Yeah.
Now it's different.
Now it's very different.
Very
But lots going
different.
on in the paddock. So usually when you watch a race and you see all the reporters going up to drivers or random exciting things going on social media for the teams, it's usually happening in the paddock.
And I find this is a fun one. I like this one. Aerodynamics. So we all, okay, no, we don't all know, but like we all know, no, we don't
Majority
know.
of us
That's
know.
why we are doing this episode. So aerodynamics are crucial in a Formula One car design, and it refers to the sturdy flow of airflow over and around an object. So obviously talking about the airflow around the F1 car. And it will play a significant role in shaping the performance of the car on the track. And this is what they do in wind tunnels. So the F1 teams put the car into a wind tunnel and blow wind onto it, basically.
Blow air.
To, I guess, study the airflow around the car with like different shapes of, you know, front wings and, oh my God.
Like
is my
parts,
brain.
different car parts.
Yeah, different car parts, and then like adjusting things by millimeters so they can see how the airflow goes around it. And yeah.
So interesting.
Well, the next term that you hear actually quite a lot in a race is chicane. So chicane it's a sequence of tight little turns that go in alternate directions. So think of like a little S. You know, they're going left and then right and left, then a right, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's quite tight and bendy, and it makes for very interesting moments of a race because you can fly through there. You have to slow down, brake, high speeds. All is
Also,
happening.
doesn't chicane actually just also mean a like man-made corner?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's like the
Chicane.
original English
Yeah.
terminology for it. But in terms of F1,
Yeah.
it's a little S-bend turn.
An
My-
S-bend.
My turn. That's one that you'll hear very often, and it's very exciting when you do hear it. And drivers do love chicane turns. They talk about it all the time. Can be when you're coming out of chicane, it can be a good opportunity to overtake.
Yep.
After doing those corners.
So the next one on our list is DRS. So we obviously speak about DRS a lot. DRS stands for Drag Reduction System. DRS was introduced how many years ago? Was it like 4 years ago, I think, more or less? In layman's terms, you know, we obviously speak about it a lot. So basically what happens is there are DRS zones amongst certain parts of different tracks, and a car will be granted they can use the DRS within certain areas. So you have to be within a certain distance behind a car and you can use DRS. DRS is basically the back of the wing will lift, and I am not a aero engineer, but I know that the wind will hit a certain way and it makes a flap on the wing go up, and it makes the car go faster. It's adjustable on the rear wing, and it basically facilitates overtaking. So it's activated by the drivers when they are within 1 second of the car ahead of them. And when they are in a DRS zone, they can then overtake. Brought some very exciting moments to the sport.
Okay, so we hear this term quite a lot. It's called bottoming. So it's when a car experiences sharp compression and suspension on travel and the chassis comes into contact with the track surface. So this can significantly affect the car's handling and stability and influence the performance of its racing situations, which we don't like sometimes.
No.
It can be entertaining to watch, but it's never good for the driver or the team.
No.
We
No
don't
one
like
wants
it.
you to bottom.
No one likes to bottom out.
So
Just trying to
no
find
one likes
anything.
the bottom out. So the next one that we hear the drivers talking a lot about, they'll be like, I don't have any grip. I'm losing grip. There's no grip. I have grip. You hear grip. Now I think I'm saying the word grip in my head wrong. Is the amount of traction a car possesses at any given point directly affects the driver's control through the corners during acceleration and braking. So as they're moving along, the track, if they're braking or accelerating into that, they might feel like they have no grip from the wheels on the track, and you can slide out from that. And it's kind of just like if you're in your car and you're on a slippery road. My tires have no grip.
And obviously we also need to have our tyres changed because they have no grip. But that can also take a few years to happen, not 5 laps.
And it also takes a lot longer to change our tires than their tires.
I was going to say, and it costs more, but it probably doesn't at all.
Alrighty, next up on our list, formation lap. So the formation lap happens at the start of the race. It's basically just a way for the cars to form up on the grid, also known as a warm-up lap, and that way they can heat up their tyres before they start the race. It's a good way for the drivers to sort of prepare for the race, and we have seen a few times where, because they go relatively
slow.
Yeah,
normal speeds for us.
relatively slow. Probably more than normal speeds for us. Trying to warm up the tires.
It's a good time to zigzag. So you will see a lot of the zigzagging going on in that formation lap before they get into formation. Cue Beyonce right now.
Okay,
in my head.
So now let's get
Exactly. And that's like in the attempt to warm up the tires a little bit more.
Now, there was a few years ago where a Haas, I can't remember who was driving in a formation lap. He crashed into a wall because he was zigzagging.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, Haas.
Of course it's
They make us laugh. They provide entertainment at least.
funny.
Yes.
Funny men. The next one, I'm going to go with G-force. So F1 cars can experience significant levels of G-force during high-speed maneuvers and cornering. The specific amount of G-force depends on various factors such as like the track layout, cornering speed, drivers' driving style. However, it's not uncommon for F1 drivers to experience lateral sideways G-forces in the range of 3 to 6 Gs during sharp turns and corners, which is a lot of G-force. To put this into perspective, fighter jets can experience between 5 to 9 Gs. So at times, these drivers are experiencing the same amount of G-force as fighter jets.
That's
Which
cool.
is pretty insane.
That's cool.
I'd vomit.
I was about to say I would vomit.
I think it would be fun, but I'd probably have an anxiety attack. But fun.
Might pass out.
Yeah.
Interesting one to train for.
Mm.
We should do a train for an F1 driver.
Yeah.
I would love
Go
that.
kart day.
If there are any
trainers
F1
out there,
trainers,
in Melbourne,
let us know.
we'll go to a gym. We'll do a neck exercise to see how strong our necks are.
Yeah, someone put us
Weak as
through
shit.
an F1 driver workout.
That'd be great.
I'm here for it.
All right, so the next one that we you hear a bit is gravel trap. So this is something that you actually see on the F1 course, and it's designed to stop the cars turning off the track. So it's obviously a lot of gravel, The Bullet, the Corson Spin at the moment, has a lot of gravel traps there. They're usually in the outside corners. They act as safety measures to slow down cars, except at the Melbourne Grand Prix this year, Amy and I happened to be seated or standing right next to a gravel trap.
Yeah.
And an F2 car just came flying and crashed right in front of us
Into the gravel.
and all the gravel just came flying at us and
Smashed a few glasses.
smashed quite a bit actually. And
Yeah.
we're behind safety
So
and stuff like
cool.
that, so it still
But
does
I
impact you.
don't think it was like they had the wire fencing.
Yeah, they've got
But
all the wire fencing, so I think it's just because of the force of the car and the speed. The gravel's
And the
gravel's
wind.
tiny as well.
But
it
imagine if
was
that
windy,
hit you in
yeah.
the head.
Well, did hit that guy in the head.
Oh.
He wouldn't stop complaining about it.
Oh, yeah,
We won't
true.
name him, but he. God.
Not happy?
Not
Amy and
happy
I
Jan.
Amy and I were like, "Oh, that's so cool," and he's like, "It hurts." And we're like,
That's so
"Yeah,
cool.
you're cool."
I mean, I think if you're sitting there, you're going to sit there with an expectation of potentially,
Especially
the risk.
Makes you feel alive.
Yeah, especially where
alive.
this spot was. I think it's turn 9?
Turn
9 is
yeah.
one of the fastest corners on the
Yeah.
That was with
GP circuit.
Mercedes, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little chicane
Yeah.
corner
little
there as
chicane.
well. A little chicane with a G. I was going to say G-force. There is G-force going on there as well, but also a gravel trap. Everything's happening there.
Well, that could lead us into the next one actually, because potentially he locked up and went into the gravel track. But yeah, so the next one is lockup. So a lockup is basically when a driver brakes sharply and either one or more of the tires lock. So it leads to tire smoke and flat spots, and it typically affects the car's handling and tire condition. So, I mean, I think the same thing can happen to our cars, right? I think our cars can lock
Yeah.
up as well. Yeah.
I think the last time we saw a lockup was Carlos
Mm-hmm.
when you hit Oscar.
Oh, Ferrari.
Anyway,
Blind spot. Apparently.
It was a blind spot.
We'll get into that another time.
we also have 2 mini episodes about this, which is compound, the tire compounds. So if you want to really get into the tire compounds, you can go back and listen to them. But
The tire episode part 2 in particular.
yes, part 2, we talk more about compounds. And yeah, I guess
It means tires.
tires and just different tires.
I think the official
Let me-
terminology would be part of the tire in contact
Yeah.
with the ground. So the rubber.
Yeah. So
But yeah, and basically different compounds consist of different ingredients and different parts, and it's basically a chemical change to create the tire.
We can
So we have slicks, hards, wets. Yeah. Go listen to
You have to listen to the episode.
Yeah.
because otherwise we could be here for 20 minutes explaining it again.
Yeah. I almost can't explain it again because I'm like I've
She's all
spoken about this.
we're all compounded out.
This next one is a blessing and a curse. The safety car. So
The good old safety car.
it's deployed during incidents or when cars need to slow down. So when there has been a which flag, guys?
Red flag.
Or sometimes even a yellow flag leading into a red flag.
Yeah, true.
Mhm.
Or a double
single
yellow.
Yellow.
Double yellow.
Double yellow.
A yellow and a red.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you have to listen to our flag episode as well. And the safety car is an interesting one because for some drivers, if it comes out at the right time, it can change their whole race for good or bad.
Mm.
And we see that happen often. So could determine when they pit, when they change their tyres, could determine the end of the race. So at Melbourne this year, we saw the safety car come out way too many times and we didn't even really see the end of the race
No.
because it came out on the last lap.
Yeah.
Mm. That race was
Insane.
ridiculous.
I didn't even know it was over.
Never.
Yeah. I had to watch it again when I got home
Me
because I
too.
feel like when you're there, you don't fully.
Yeah.
That was pure chaos, that race, and
I was so many margaritas days
Yeah.
in with Patron.
Yes.
I was about to say, I don't know if it was that. I didn't know
27
that.
champagnes deep.
I was champagne deep, but
Mm.
Anyway, that's your safety car.
So the next one we have is sectors. So for timing purposes, laps are divided into 3 sections. So sector 1, 2, and 3. And typically over a race weekend, you'll hear, oh, Lando's had the fastest lap in sector 1, or Checo's had the fastest lap in sector 2, and you'll see it on the screen. It'll be highlighted. Their lap time will be highlighted in purple, and that would signify the fastest lap of that sector. It's just a way to sort of break down the course and define how drivers are doing. Yeah. I think as well it's a way for the teams to manage the cars, and especially over practice sessions, they can monitor the cars, how they're doing in certain sectors, and what's performing, what's not performing. And that's what a sector is.
We also hear this a lot is drag. So drag refers to the aerodynamic resistance that opposes the forward motion of the car as it moves through the air. When an F1 car travels at high speeds, it encounters air molecules that create a force, pushing it in the opposite direction of its movement. So this aerodynamic drag reduces the car's top speed and affects its acceleration, and ultimately impacting its performance on the racetrack. And to minimize drag and increase overall performance, F1 teams use advanced aerodynamic designs such as streamlined bodywork, wings and diffusers. I think, who was it? Was it McLaren? No, Red Bull that recently put on new diffusers.
McLaren.
Is it McLaren?
Yep, McLaren.
And that can manipulate the airflow around the car. So generating downforce to improve a grip and cornering abilities while striking a balance between minimizing drag and maximizing speed on straight airways.
So I think that's
On
when
straights.
when we see things like you've mentioned before, how, when they move the wing like a centimetre and then it just like impacts it so much, or like makes such a positive impact to the car and reduces drag.
Yeah, they're such small adjustments, but big impact.
All right, so then we have the pit wall. So if you are watching a F1 race on TV, you will hear the commentators refer to, let's go to the pit and see what is happening. So during the races, that's where team owners, managers, engineers, people like Christian Horner, Toto Wolff, other race principals that you hear us talk about or anyone else talk about, that's where they'll be sitting in front of a lot of different computers. Lots of different screens, watching what is happening on the track, what's happening with the cars, and pretty much reporting back. And they will, with all of that computer and technology in front of them, they've got a really strong strategic viewpoint that they can make strategies and speak with their drivers through the radio. So that's what happens on the pit wall. So behind them is the garage. So in between goes the garage, then the pit, which is where the drivers come down, they change their tyres, and then it's the pit wall, and then it's the racetrack. So if you're picturing it like, anyway.
Flows nicely.
Next one on our list, we have stewards. So the stewards are basically officials high-ranking officials that are each Grand Prix, and they make crucial decisions regarding incidents and rule violations. So they are the people that like to hand out those penalties and like to hand out those, for example, this year in Austria when we kept seeing grid violations and cars racing over the lines.
The lines. The dreaded white lines.
The dreaded white line.
Track limits.
Yeah, over this is when the stewards come in and they, they're the bosses for the weekend basically.
They give you a tap on the wrist.
Yeah.
They make the
Or they just give you
plans.
5-second penalties.
So many 5-second penalties.
Yep.
Last but not least, we have side pods. So as mentioned before, we spoke about aerodynamics, and side pods are an aerodynamic component, and they are located on each side of the car, housing cooling radiators and heat exchangers for the engine. They optimize airflow management, cooling, and aerodynamics, so reducing drag and generating downforce for improved grip during high-speed cornering, just like our little chicanes. chicanes that we mentioned before.
The less
And
turns.
They are strictly regulated by the FIA, and teams invest in research and development to gain, competitive edge. So little side pods have big impact.
Competitive edge, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever
There's
I
a lot.
hear them say side pod, it always reminds me of like on the Aristocats, or just that was a Disney movie, or like those little motorbikes and they have a side pod. Have you seen those?
Yes,
And sometimes there's like a dog in the side pod.
Yeah.
That's what it makes me think of.
Cars.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, that's what I think of it as. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, Red Bull updated their side pods 2 races ago, and by doing that, they were able to cool their car down a lot faster as well than everyone else as well. So that was probably also, I think that is their last major upgrade before the end of the year. I know Max changed his gearbox, but I don't think they've got any more car changes. All right. Well, I think that takes us through some of the key terminology. There is so much more, but these are the ones that you will hear the most when people are talking about F1 or you are watching a F1 race.
I think as well we could do an episode on even the terminology. Like this is the main terminology that's used over a race weekend. But then there's a lot of terminology that we say, a lot of things that we say on the podcast, terminology that's used within F1 that maybe, it's just shortened names. So I think we could do a part 2, even a part 3 on this.
Do a part
I think
2.
so, yeah.
Let us know if you'd like to hear that.
Or if you hear anything that you don't quite understand, let us know.
Okay. See you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.